Okay, now let's a little bit more than what we have covered till now. Till now, we know what activities are, what layout files are, how do they work together, but we don't know much about how different systems work. Now, some of the things that I would like to cover before we actually start projects is our first one is r.java file. Now, r.java file is more like, let's say, in United States we have social security number, and every time someone tries to come inside the country, they have to go to the social security administrator, and then they will issue a social security number for that person, which will kind of identify that person as unique. So, in our projects that we built previously, our first application, if you see, everything that we have inside our resources folder, which is inside src main res. So whatever we have, like let's say ic launcher file, if we have a layout file, inside this we have some colors, dimension, strings. Now they are all registered inside something called as a r.java file or resources.java file. Now where do we find it? We can find it inside build generated source r debug, your application package name, and r.java file. Now if you look inside this, it has a lot of other resources other than what you defined, but you can access all these different resources which are provided by Android. But the one that I'm looking for is, let's say, let's search for class layout. And if you see inside class layout, you have a bunch of different layout files, and your activity main is highlighted here. So what it does is, to this activity main, it gives a particular ID to it. So inside my r.java file, there's another class called as layout and activity main. And that's why when I have to set the content view, I specify r dot, so r java class, layout class inside that, and activity main inside that. So the reason being, our set content view, so you can press control click or command click, and you can actually go here. What it needs is an integer layout resource id, and that's what this guy gives him, the resource id for this. Now if I want to get it for my ic launcher, which is inside mipmap folder, I'll probably access it using r.mipmap.ic launcher. Now that is also registered. Let's look at something else like the app name inside the strings file. So if you see, this class is called string, which is not for the resource values but for the strings file. Inside strings I have app name, and that's where the name is, and that is also registered. If you go inside dimensions, we have a couple of dimensions here, so you can actually search for class dimen, and inside that we have a lot of dimensions, and the one that we're looking for are activity horizontal right here and activity vertical margin. So they all kind of register, and if you see, you should not actually play around with this file or modify it, because as it says here, files under the build folder are generated and should not be edited. They are created automatically for you. For example, let me create a new right click and say new layout resource file, can call it xyz, and say okay, create. As soon as I create it, if I go to our file and look for that class layout, as soon as I save this file, let's say build this project, it should actually create it directly as and when I don't have to do anything. Let's go inside layout file, let's look at it. There you go, xyz. So it will actually create for every single file that enters inside our resource folder. So that's what an r.java file is. Let me delete this because we don't need it anymore. Just an example to show you guys. So that's what r.java file is, which will keep kind of track of everything. And inside XML, if you want to access these things, you can actually access it using, now let's say if I want to access dimensions in here. Now for example, if you see here, you can actually say @dimen and then name of the dimension. You can access a particular name. Now let's say this hello world. Now this is not inside string.html, it's just right over here. So if I want to set it to strings.java file, a string.xml file, I can just right click on this and I can say where is, so not right click, I can just say alt enter and I say extract string resource, and I can say hello world for this particular resource name and send it. And now if I open that strings.xml file, you'll see that guy right over here. This is helpful because it can help in actually creating a single file where you can keep everything, or the other advantages is for localization for different languages. Now for example, if I go here and I create another folder new and go to new Android resource directory and say values dash es, which is Espanol, so Spanish. And if I copy my strings.xml and paste it here, I can see the Spanish flag here. I can create another one. Let's say let's create the French one, dash fr, and then paste that strings.xml. So I have my French. Now I don't know Spanish or French, so I'm just gonna say Spanish hello world, Spanish application. Go to this file and say French hello world, French application. As soon as I run this project, since I my language settings on my emulator is English, it's going to show hello world. But if I go to my settings, should be somewhere in right here. If I go to my settings and go to the language and input field, change the language to Espanol, Hispana, and go back to my application. You probably see Spanish application, Spanish hello world. Again, if I go back to my settings and change the language to French, let's go where is the, and then go back to my application, it will automatically change. So you don't have to change anything, you just have to provide these different files and it will automatically do it. Another thing is it will actually make your translation cost come down. You don't need a French or Spanish developer. You can just give this file to whoever you want to, the translator, and they can translate it for you. So it's pretty convenient. The next thing that I want to show is you can also, now let's say I have my activity main file here which says hello world, and I want to add a bunch of different things to it. So the top of the part we have relative layout. So relative layout, see what it does is it lets me, let me make it a little bigger, lets me add stuff relative to the screen or to the parent or relative to the previous text that I have here. So based on that I can add items wherever I want. That is one way of doing it. If you don't like this relative layout, you can actually go in here and change this relative layout to linear layout. This is the easiest way of changing it. So if you see linear layout, and now linear layouts are available in two different types, horizontal and vertical. By default, if you don't specify it, it will create horizontal layout for you. Remove everything from here and just say orientation to horizontal. And now horizontal linear layout, what it does is when you keep on adding stuff, it's going to add them one after another, or you can add it in between, and then it will keep on adding it on the horizontal and you'll see that it doesn't exist anymore. If I change this to vertical, I guess you already guessed it, what it does is it will take them one below another. So no matter how I add, drag and drop them, it will just move them one below another. So that's one of the other layout. The other layouts available like frame layout, which you actually, if you keep your mouse on top of it, it will tell you it's just used for one single element to block out the entire thing. Then you have table layout, which has table rows inside it. You have grid layout, which is used for your photos or gallery, which is a grid of items. Then you have relative layout, which we already saw. I'm going to use linear layout for most of my projects just because because it's so simple to use, so that's why I'm going to use that. And you can always nest them one inside another, so you can have one linear layout which is horizontal, which has three linear vertical linear layouts inside them, so you can make it as complex as possible depending on what the design requirements are. And these are all called view groups, so they're pretty much like skeleton of a particular human. So you can add stuff inside these, all these different widgets, you can add it inside those skeletons, however you want it, so wherever you want it. So these are kind of like a view group. So that's what view groups are.